Man, we lose a lot of celebrity prognosticators.
Yep.
It's
So
one of the
sad.
it's one of the world's most dangerous jobs.
Is it cursed? How many have we lost? How many? Norm Macdonald passed away. It was a surprise to many. He had kept his illness a secret for 9 years.
Is that the way Alan Thicke started with us as a celebrity prognosticator? No?
No, he didn't start that way, but he ended that way. He was the reigning celebrity prognosticator when he passed away. Made me cry in my bathroom.
Are we cursed? Are we haunted? Because Super Dave Osborne, Bob Einstein, was one of the greatest friends this show has ever had. And we've had these moments. Gene Okerlund has passed away. It's a byproduct of the show being almost 20 years old.
Bob Einstein refused to be celebrity prognosticator again because he found out that there was a curse associated with celebrity prognosticator.
Oh, boy.
Do you have any of that sound of him yelling at us? You guys had the strangest, most wonderful relationship with Bob Einstein, where you would have all sorts of conversations with him off air, where he refused to come on air because he said celebrity prognosticator was cursed, and then he died anyway, and now Norm Macdonald is gone too, and he was one of our favorite celebrity prognosticators.
We're all going to die, Dan.
Yeah, but I mean,
wow,
these
that
are
ranks
really
as among the most useless things.
Well,
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but usually it's not immediately following a benchmark on a popular radio show. Abdullah the Butcher, another celebrity prognosticator that passed away quite recently after he appeared on our show.
You know what they say about Father Time, Dan, right? Undefeated.
Except for Tom Brady.
That's right. Good point.
Yes, Stugotz, we're all going to die. Make that the
Mike has me dying in under 15 years. I mean,
Except Jeff Bezos.
yeah, he's not going to die. The subject line on this hour should be "We're all going to die." See if we can get some clicks.
I mean, now that we think about it, like everyone that participates in Celebrity Prognosticator is going to die.
Correct.
That's not why it would be cursed. But one of the things that Chris was saying when we were talking about the sadness of Norm Macdonald passing away, that we've all almost died, that we probably all have a story. I almost have a story of literally being hit by a bus, where you guys can say, it could have come close to saying Dan Le Batard died. He was hit by a bus.
Bettis? What? No.
While we think of our near-death stories, let's play Bob Einstein leaving a voicemail for Allison Turner, our guest booker, who was chasing him to be our celebrity prognosticator again for years. But he refused because of the presumed curse around the segment.
Yeah, I called you back. I tried 3 times calling me with those stupid questions. But here's the thing. I would love to answer those questions because I would have a lot of fun, but I like living. It's one of my favorite things to do. Get up, breathe the air, have some breakfast. If I'm working, I work. If I'm not, I'm not. That's all. It's very simple. It's black and white. I don't like to bring color into this, but it's simple. And too many people have died.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Didn't you almost crash a hot air balloon into a rhino on your honeymoon?
Yes, but that wasn't actually a near-death experience. We landed softly enough, and it was near rhino poop, not near the rhino. That would have been a lot worse.
I can't tell you how many times I was sitting outside of an LA Fitness on a 3-way call with Bob Einstein, just telling me jokes that he had. Well, I could tell you, it was probably like 3 times. It wasn't like a countless number of times. But
They were all good jokes, though, correct?
some of them were repeated jokes that I had heard, like the week before. But
you
yeah.
laughed like you were hearing it for
Oh
the first
no,
time.
it was incredible. You know how many times he insulted me, told me my ideas were stupid? It was so great.
This brings me to Norm Macdonald, because he did awkward comedy, uncomfortable comedy so very well. He would insult people to their face. There has not been and will never be a greater ESPYs than Norm Macdonald doing the monologue and actually cutting through all the mythological fame bullshit and actually going after people, going after the big, powerful celebrities in a way that the audience loved, and ESPN immediately ended and regretted and got him out of there, never to host it again. But he loved Awkward. He was so good at Awkward, and this is the thing that always impresses me, Stugotz, because the level of discerning among stand-up comics who are great is the highest form of critique or judgment, I think, in entertainment. And when they say someone's a good comedian, that person's a good comedian. Norm Macdonald is somebody who's getting reverence today from a lot of people, but other comedians will tell you what he did was really brilliant, was genius. We had our experience with him because he would tell these long, sprawling stories, and he told, most famously, a bad beat story that was just a killer because he was a gambler, but he was a bad gambler. And one of the reasons we wanted him as celebrity prognosticator is because he cared about it, but he was kind of a loser. And what says loser more than this bad beat?
One time I had a massive bet down. It was my last bet. I just said, I'll just bet all this. And then I got 2 aces. And and then I was like, I don't know if I have enough money, but can I get some credit, like from the casino to bet on this other ace? And they're like, no. And I'm like, does anyone else want to buy an ace? No, but everyone else there was betting small.
You were at a $5 table.
No, I don't like the what the hell? I'm watching the draft.
What? Nor what?
I was just watching the draft.
Okay. All right.
So, anyways, my 2 aces, I go, hit me. I have 2. You know what I mean? So I have to hit. So I have an ace and an ace. It's a 2. So I hit it.
Oh, no.
Because you couldn't split it. Here come the face cards.
12.
Here come
22.
Oh.
So as obviously I would have had 2 21s. Instead I have 1 22.
Mike, I'm pretty sure I have this right. It was not draft day. It was like 6 months after the draft. Norm was doing that as an audio joke. Do you have a date on when that sound was from?
It was also in the morning. I mean,
he was
not
watching an old draft on one of the sport dedicated channels, either NBA TV or NFL Network.
I think he put it up as a prop. I think because he was on a sports show, he just wanted the interruption, the loudness, because he loved Awkward so much. We talked to him about the ESPYs. I'm telling you, there's never been a crueler or cooler monologue than the one this guy did at the ESPYs because of how uncomfortable he made an assortment of people.
Who was most upset with you after that night?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Really?
Did he say something?
Yeah, they told me, like after the show, they were, there's this big party, and they were always like, all through the show, this party's going to be great. And then at the end, I go, where's that party? And they're like, I probably should just go back to the
hotel. That's how you learned that you were not invited to Ken Griffey Jr.'s party?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you remember most about that night? Is there one joke that you're particularly proud of? And you tend to be someone who doesn't, you don't do a lot of reveling in the past. You move on. But is there anything in particular that you are proud of there?
Well, Woodson won the Heisman that year.
It's a good joke.
And so I said, they could never take that away from you unless you kill your wife and a waiter.
It's so good, man. It's such a good joke. It really is. Stugotz, I was laughing because a lot of people were sending out video. He's funny across the decades. The bit that he did on Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, 10 days after his death, like walking the tightrope of too soon, but he did the joke so deftly, so well. He's like, imagine that. He died. Crocodile hunter. Killed by a fish. All the other crocodiles super mad. Like, did it deftly. I'm not doing it justice. The idea that he would be 10 days after someone's death, it was a beloved time.
Yes.
Everybody was still mourning that death, and he was able to do that joke deftly.
He had so many great bits, and with him passing, I was reminded of a lot of these all-timers. His monologue on SNL a year and a half after he was fired from SNL, he came back and hosted, and he's like, they fired me on the grounds that I wasn't funny enough, which at any other company would be an HR violation, but here, they kind of got you. And only a year and a half has passed. I didn't get funnier. The show's just that much worse. And I'm not even going to begin to try to retell his story, his joke that he did on Conan O'Brien, but it's one of the greatest commitments to a bit I have ever seen. I did not get Norm Macdonald when I was younger watching SNL.
Neither did I.
I didn't like him. And then 10 years later, one of my favorite all-time comedians. He is fearless. He goes into sets with the thinking, I want to bomb here. I want to be so unfunny that it's funny, and I can pull it off. And he was one of the only people to ever do that. Comedian, respected and loved by all. A huge loss.
I am reading tributes here on Twitter from the likes of Steve Martin. You're right, like comedian, and they're all talking about the genius of Norm Macdonald. Like he was funny, but the genius that goes behind him being funny it's pretty remarkable.
Give me
to read.
all the others. Give me all the others that you've known to sink into the discomforts and to make unfunny funny by just staring you in the face and daring you to not find it funny, not in any way bothered. I never saw on him a discomfort around the discomforts he would create, but I believe that when comedians admire him, it's from there. Oh, this dude just sits there staring at you and doesn't need the rhythms of when I say this word this way, I wait because I know laughter's coming because I've gotten so good at the sculpting of this. No, he'd reverse engineer it. He'd sit there and be like, no, that wasn't funny. And look, I'm going to stare at you and you're going to stare at me and it's going to become funny because I'm just going to sit in how bad that joke was.
If you get it as an audience, great. If I make you laugh along the way, awesome. But I'm really in it to make myself and my peers laugh. And no one made fellow comedians laugh harder behind the curtain than Norm Macdonald. And we've always talked about why can't someone do the sports show well? It wasn't necessarily supported, but his sports show on Comedy Central was really great. Would DVR that show weekly. He was just an absolute gem.
Kept it quiet somehow during the celebrity age because one of the things that lands with eulogies that are filled with hosannas is how surprised are you? And I believe that what happened yesterday ends up spreading because nobody had any idea. It was something that he was able to keep a secret in Hollywood in a gossipy circle of people for a really long time.
And he even had a poignant bit on cancer. Don't say that I lost a battle to cancer, because the cancer dies with me. That's a draw.
It is. It's a tie. Don't make me a loser in the afterlife. He deserves what he's getting today and yesterday in terms of praise, Stugotz, because of what it is that I'm telling you. We're the most discerning of the entertainment communities, the people willing to be brave enough to make a career, Stugotz, out of standing in front of a microphone with the expectation of laughter and knowing how to make you laugh, which is a medicine that can pay millions of dollars with the guys who do it well. The comedians in this industry. There wasn't a one who didn't genuflect, right? There wasn't a one out there among the bigs, among the people you were hearing from who was saying anything other than Norm Macdonald is one of the best to ever do it. I wonder if the audience receives him that way, though.
In the next hour, I'm going to play the greatest joke you've ever heard.
Wow.
That's a tease.
What
the greatest
tease.
Norm Macdonald joke ever.
Is it the moth joke?
No, it's when he went on Conan and decided to just go in it for himself. And it was just a great insight into how hard he would make other comedians laugh and his whole bit. He was great, man.
I remember that this guy befriended Warren Buffett. He is someone who's really interested in money and handling your money well, financial literacy. He's working with a lot of kids. It's a first of its kind free program, 160 students in Portland, Oregon, as part of the Sioux Family Foundation partnership with Stash 101. He's a menace, an unholy menace. He will eat your children.
He's a Super Bowl champion now, too.
Yes, but he will also teach your children once he's eaten them to be financially sound. And Ndamukong Suh with us. Thank you for joining us. Tell me why it is that this is such an area of interest to you, Ndamukong. Did you know anything about money coming out of college? Did you know how much your life was going to change with investments and people piling on you, wanting money? Did you know what was coming?
Dan, first and foremost, thanks for having me. But no, and I think that's a big reason of why I've been such a huge proponent of wanting to be and pushing kids to financial literacy at a young age. I think as we grew up, not only from elementary to middle school to high school, and then even more importantly into college, there's no courses. There's nothing that's giving you that understanding of how you're going to move into the real world and how money and finances in general are going to really control your life in a lot of ways, whether that's knowing how to manage your rent and paying bills on time, utilities, all those different pieces as you're a young man or woman going to college, or just even understanding that I was lucky enough to have a scholarship where people have to pay for schooling and being able to manage saying I'm now $250K in debt because I got a great law degree from NYU or whatever it may be. So those are the different pieces that I want to prepare kids and even youth and even adults alongside them, because their parents can learn right alongside them. I'm sure they didn't have those lessons growing up.
What can you tell us about what it was like for you leaving college, the mistakes you made or the things that you didn't know that you wish you had known?
So I was very, very fortunate. When I left college, I had a handful of mentors and people, not only my parents, that said, all right, one, my parents said, you can't spend any money without telling us. That soon became finding people that were around me from a standpoint of I had the Gary Schiffmans of the world, and as you mentioned, the Warren Buffetts of the world that taught me some different pieces of how to understand what finances are. And really that was allowing me to not make those mistakes and not be going into a hole and putting myself in debt and understanding how do I purchase a car, whether I'm going to lease or I'm going to purchase it. So those different pieces and having those nuances and people to help me were very, very key to my success and where I'm at right now, I believe.
How did it happen with Warren Buffett, and how much of a schoolboy do you, at the beginning, were you around him because you're like, I can't believe I have access to this kind of information?
Yeah, definitely blown away. I was early into leaving college, and it was really my last year at the school. We both went to University of Nebraska, obviously, but met in my senior year during our senior game, and then asked to meet him later on in that spring, and was fortunate enough to be connected by Coach Osborne, and really just had a conversation with him for 2-3 hours and really hit it off, and have been friends ever since. We talked pretty much on a quarterly basis when he has time in between our schedules, as he's very busy and I'm in the middle of the season right now. So it's exciting being able to have that, but let alone, as I mentioned, I've had other great mentors, and I think there's guys that I even had at the University of Nebraska, like the Joel Moglias, who actually are coaches and huge finance people, where he was at TD Ameritrade, the chairman of that. So being able to tug on folks like that and learn from them was exciting.
Do you have a more interesting friend in your life anywhere than Warren Buffett?
Interesting. I think all my friends are very, very interesting. I would say all of my mentors and friends all play a huge part in my family and really just who I am as a person. So the great thing is that we all push each other. And it's weird because a lot of my friends and family are much older than me, usually about 10 or 15 years. And yeah, I have childhood friends I'm still close with and whatnot. But for whatever reason, that's just the way I've been. I've always had that kind of old soul, to say the least.
Do you wander around the locker room warning people of the financial perils of football? I mean, it seems, I got to be honest with you, Ndamukong, I'm surprised that you've only been in the league for 11 years. It feels like you've been in the league across 2 decades.
Like we've known him forever.
Just in the middle, just bothering everybody, requiring double teams, and then chasing down wide receivers somehow at your size. None of it makes any sense to me, but do you wander around the locker room warning the young guys, hey, don't be an idiot about this?
Well, I appreciate the commentary, and I love making noise on the football field. But when it comes to the locker room, I'm very, very actually cautious of what advice I give. I always tell guys to go and research and do kind of their own homework to understand their own particular pieces. And really, it's more or less questions coming to me, like what are my thoughts around this? What are my thoughts around these different pieces? Just because they've seen me out in the business world and being on TV and speaking to different things. And so it was weird, actually, even with Stash 101, one of my teammates, Ryan Jensen, happened to know one of the founders of the company that they actually acquired called PayGrade. a while ago, and he hit me with a random text. It's like, "Hey, what are you doing with these guys?" And I was like, "Oh, it's something that we're doing from a financial literacy standpoint." So it was cool. Stuff like that is usually how it goes.
What's life look like for you when you're done playing football?
Ideally, I'm huge into real estate. I started a development company a handful of years ago with a close friend of mine and business partner, a guy named Joel Anderson, who has one of the largest construction companies on the Pacific Northwest. So real estate's going to be a big part of that, of my life. Outside of that, definitely into investing, continue to work and be a venture partner when it comes to the funds that I'm a part of and the people and relationships I have, whether it's Andreessen Horowitz or General Atlantic or Marcy Venture Partners. And then really just being a father. I'm excited to see my boys that are now 5.5 months grow up, be there with them every step of the way, push them, challenge them academically, physically, from an athletic standpoint. My wife wants them to both be basketball players, so we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be interesting.
She doesn't want them to be football players,
Nope,
correct?
nope.
She does not want them playing football.
It was funny. This weekend we were all at home. We were watching football. I'm holding one of them. My mom was actually there, and she was holding the other. And they were like, "See this hit? Like that's exactly why my grandbabies aren't playing football. So it's okay for your son to play, but my grandbabiys aren't playing anymore." So,
do you have any supporters in the house who are saying, is there anyone in the lineage saying, "Yes, please"? You didn't get all this money so that they could play football, busting up their bodies.
No, it's definitely it's interesting though, because I grew up in a family that was really big on soccer. So European football. My dad played professionally overseas. My sister played for my dad's country, and my mom was big into actually cricket and track. So, no, I'm the first of the generations to actually get into American football. So it's definitely turning the tide, but it's really whatever they want to get into and what they're interested in is what they'll be allowed to do.
Physically, who's the most impressive family member throughout the line? Is it your great-grandfather?
I think my great-grandfather is definitely a big part of it, just from the standpoint of being 7'6" and being a huge man in his own. But my sister, in Gum, I would say, is definitely a talent. She got 2 degrees in biological sciences and kinesiology, and then also, played Olympic level soccer and has done some amazing things. So I think she has the winning tote right now, but I'm trying to catch up with her.
If you had to guess, the parents prouder of her than they are of you. Like if you had to get an answer out of them that was 100% honest, and they had to pick a side, they couldn't say it's even.
They couldn't say it's even. I think they'll go with my sister without a doubt. She's definitely led the charge, and I've always said it from the very beginning of my career, and even leaving high school, I was following in her footsteps. So she didn't pave the way and say, "All right, she got a scholarship for soccer going to Mississippi State." I wouldn't even know what a scholarship was, or even focusing on something of that nature. So she definitely has paved the way for the family when it comes to that.
If we spoke to you 4 years from today, who would be more likely to still be playing football, you or Tom Brady?
Ooh.
It's going to be Brady. I mean, are you kidding me?
I probably put Brady there just because he's in the trenches a little bit tougher, and I've got a lot of juice left. But like I said before, my kids are kind of my big focus outside of football, and I love business, but Brady, I think he's going to want to play for the rest of his life. I have definitely aspirations outside, but 4 to 5 more years, that's a tough one.
Can you give us a Brady story? Give us one from the Indomitian Sioux file that would exhibit something that we don't know, or just a little bit about how much swagger he has, or whatever deal it is that he's made with the devil that allows him to play throughout eternity without aging.
No, Tom's an overall great guy, and I've enjoyed being able to get to know him. And really, probably the funniest piece is him actually laughing about me close to hurting him and putting him out for a playoff game. We were going against each other in, I think it was probably 16 or 17. And obviously he knew I wasn't trying to take him out or anything, but we're in Miami. We're a tough team. We want to always beat up on the New England Patriots, and just kind of being that lighthearted guy and being a good guy. He's somebody that I could see being a friend outside of football and not being on the same team.
Do you have a year that is more fun than all the others? Was last year the most fun year of your career? Or is there another that you might choose where you were just enjoying yourself? Because this whole thing's a grind in Dominican, and I don't know how much fun it can be without the winning, because I can't imagine what your body feels like a decade in doing what you do for a living.
My body feels great, to be honest with you. I've got a great performance team that takes great care of me. So I'm very blessed and lucky in that space. But truthfully, last year in 2014, I'm very, very hard pressed between those two seasons of what's been the most enjoyable. 2014, we broke a bunch of records on the defense side of the ball, went to the playoffs, and even that group. We have text message, our group text still this day that it's blowing up all the time. It was actually going off this morning. So, and then I'm really close with the guys here in Tampa, and obviously winning a championship is something special in a group of guys you'd never forget. So I'm hard pressed between those 2 years.
When you mention performance team, I imagine you have an economy around your body because you're a smart investor. And so when you say my performance team, what is that? How sprawling is that?
My performance team starts with my performance director, a guy named Keith. And then I have a guy, Charlie, who's my physical therapist. And then I have a naturopath that I work with, and a chiropractor. They all see me. They have got their specific days. And then fortunately enough, we've got a great organization here at Tampa. And I work with some of our staff here for more acute things that are happening in between practices. But I've definitely got a great team that is taking care of me from top to bottom and allowed me to play my 12th season right now.
You've stayed remarkably healthy. Like, that's part of it, right? You're basically repairing your body at all times. You're busting it down, you're breaking it down, and then you go immediately right back to repair.
No question. And that's exactly how it happens from a standpoint of whether you're an Olympic athlete or you're a triathlon or just somebody who's an everyday athlete that wants to run a marathon. You break your body down, you build it back up, and you're finding ways to continue to increase and get better each and every single day. So
what's the thing? Because I associate you simply with strength. Okay, so what's the thing in the weight room that Ndamukong Suh can do if he were actually trying to impress somebody with feats of strength?
Feats of strength. I mean, truthfully, if I pride myself being able to move kettlebells in some unique ways, and kettlebells from a standpoint of using 40 kgs and things of that nature, that where I'm doing kettlebell swings or I'm doing single arm presses and different things of that nature. And I think probably one of the most difficult things that I do in the off season are rear foot elevated split squats. So look that one up and do a couple bouts of those, like a 3x10 for 3 series, and you should have some fun the next day.
You're absurdly flexible for a man your size.
Those are tricky, though. I gotta be honest.
You're absurdly flexible for a man your size, correct?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
A man that you've gone up against, has this happened in your career where the strength has surprised you, where you're like, oh, wait, this dude, okay, this dude.
No one's stronger than him.
Okay,
Dan.
but I want to hear some names from him on just somebody who got your attention with, like, okay, maybe I'm not quite as strong as this guy, or maybe he's even in strength to me.
Yeah, Leonard Davis for sure. Cowboys. He was a mammoth in his own that I've gone against. I got respect for his athletic abilities, and he's also strong himself in Kyle Long. But the funny thing is, I'm usually always got 2 guys on me at the minimum. So I most of the time don't get to have those one-on-one situations, but yeah, I would say those 2 guys that I've got some good respect for.
Is there a guy on the defensive side of the ball that you watch and you're like, okay, perhaps that guy can also throw an offensive lineman with one arm at the quarterback in order to get a sack? That guy might be as strong as I am.
Yeah, I would definitely say Fletcher Cox is a guy that I've watched over the years and said, wow, you're very, very impressive. And we had a similar coach in a guy named Jim Washburn that coached us both before he came to Detroit my last 2 years. So watched a lot of film on him. And then I would say a guy that I haven't been around that I've been very impressed with is Myles Garrett. He has seemed to be, for lack of better words, a freak of nature and very, very talented. So I'm excited to see where his career continues to grow and blossom.
All right, do me a favor. Put us in the living room these days when you're watching Nebraska football. Put us there.
Disappointment, complete, utter disappointment, and just how they've been focusing on not being a powerhouse. And to me, if I can ultimately, and I always try to be very, very truthful, it's unfortunate kind of how the things have unfolded there. And I hope that things start to turn around, but I think there needs to be some changes potentially and find a way to kind of get back to the old way of doing pieces. And I think they've started to do some different things when they brought in a new AD recently. But yeah, Nebraska football has not been how I left it and how Levante David left it.
As someone who cares about the art of the position, can you explain to us what you see when you're watching Aaron Donald?
Aaron Donald is a great athlete. And one thing he does is keeps people's hands off of him. It's one thing that I was always impressed with him, playing with him for a year. Obviously, he's got great footwork, and that's hand in hand with your hand and eye coordination. But he's got brute strength as well, and built-in leverage, being a little bit of a shorter type of D tackle. So he's got a great method to math, and he works hard. There's something that I've always respected about him. He's a guy that's a tireless worker and always put in work and make sure he's not just using his God-given talent.
Do you run into many offensive linemen who are talkers?
There's some for sure. And I think it's more of trying to distract versus actually meaning their words that they're saying. That's what I've started to see that a little bit more. And then even like the guys that I've played against, like I know, and I'm not looking ahead because we got a big game this weekend against Atlanta, but LA, like my old teammates, they've always like try and talk to me and like I'm dead faced to them. Like I'm a whole different person when it gets on the football field, as you know, and we're not friends. We can talk and be friends after the game and high five, but on the football field, you are wearing an opposite color.
So you're hissing with rage on Sundays? Like this is not everyone's the enemy, and you would bayonet everybody.
Unless you're lining up next to me or behind me, we are not friends.
Because you're such a nice man. You're gentle, caring.
Well, but this is, yes, he's gentle and caring, and he cares about your financial literacy and the financial literacy of your kids. But he's allowed to be something different on those other days. Before we get you out of here, just what do you want people to know about Stash 101, the summer school, and why it is you're doing it in Portland, and what it is your wife's connection is to it, and why these 160 students were chosen?
Yeah, Stash 101 and that partnership it's been a great one, and one that we're going to continue to grow and move. And my wife took a great lead alongside a close friend of ours, Brendan Scarlett, who plays for the Dolphins, and his foundation, Big Yard, and allowed us to, one, take care of our backyard in Portland and really focus in on financial literacy for the youth. And I think starting in that middle school and high school levels is never too early. And that's been our big focus, to help them understand what they're getting ready to go into, whether there's credit, debit, understanding all those different pieces that's going to be very prevalent into their young adult lives and as they get older.
Have you gotten into cryptocurrency? Do you understand it?
I understand it for the most part, and really more so from the blockchain view of things. There's so many different types of coins and metrics, Ether and Ethereum. You look at Bitcoin and you see the Litcoin piece with, I think, Walmart that just came out the other day. So I read up on it all the time. But it's something that I've started to hone in a little bit more and get education and taught. And I actually talk to my guys all the time about just setting up meetings for people to give us their understanding of it. And I think it's good to always have a small bite size, just have a little bit of exposure. Nothing you're going to bet the house on.
Is there anything in your childhood that would explain the roots of this to us in Dominican? Like the interest level that you have in this, the interest level in being a real estate conqueror and being maximum informed, where does it come from?
Without question, my parents. My father was very, very big in real estate. That's where I get it from. Even my mother, as I was a young kid growing up, I had to cut our apartment lawns and got no money for it. That's part of your duties and that's part of your focus. And so understanding that that's how I knew I was able to go to AAU basketball tournaments and soccer tournaments and things of that nature because of the additional income that was afforded to me. And then that's really where you create generational wealth, being able to pass those things down. So that's one of my ultimate goals, is to continue to build an empire, show my kids how it was done, and at the same time be able to pass something down to them when they're able to accept that. And really, I want them to also have an understanding of what they're accepting.
What's the end game, Sue?
I think the end game is to continue, like I said, build that empire, but at the same time be able to help the community. And I think there's one thing that can go hand in hand, especially when it comes to real estate. You can build wealth and create generational wealth, but at the same time, you can also help people and find ways for them to be successful. I don't want to have success by myself and for lack of better words, be at the top of the pyramid solo. You can bring your family and friends right alongside you, and I plan to do that and fully in the process of doing that.
So Bezos, you're gonna knock out, like, what's the empire look like? The empire, the Sue empire in 10 years, what does it look like?
I don't know from a numbers perspective, but I'll definitely shooting for the stars. There's no reason why you can't be more successful than some people that have come before you. It's just looking a little bit differently.
So you're gonna visit space. You're gonna build it.
Visit space. We'll see about that one. I don't know. We got to do a couple more test runs before I jump in one of those.
You do that, Brady will be back here on Earth, still winning Super Bowls. Okay.
Exactly. No question.
See you later, Dominican. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, guys.
My strongest material comes from real life.
Real life?
Like, for instance, today I was driving in a car.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind enough to bring a car to bring this old chunk of coal here to the studio.
We send cards for our guests, yes.
Yeah, so I got in it, and I get material that way. So my driver.
What do you mean? How do you get material that way? You get in the car, and what happens?
My driver tells me a joke.
The driver we sent to pick you up told you a joke.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell it now on the show.
Yeah, that's how I get a lot of my material.
Okay. Why don't we just have him on next time?
That guy. That guy. No, wait till you hear me do it. So the guys, he goes, I say, I'll be the guy.
Okay.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office. Right?
You are correct. A moth goes into a podiatrist's office, and the podiatrist's office says, "What's the problem?" And the moth says, "What's the problem? Where do I begin, man?" He goes, "I go to work for Gregory Olinovich, and all day long I work." Honestly, Doc, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know if Gregory Olinovich knows. He only knows that he has power over me, and that seems to bring him happiness. But I don't know. I wake up in a malaise, and I walk here and there. The podiatrist says, "Oh, yeah?" And the moth goes, "Yes." And he goes, "At night, I sometimes wake up, and I turn to some old lady in my bed that's on my arm. A lady that I once loved, Doc. I don't know where to turn to. My youngest, Alexandria. She fell in the cold of last year. The cold took her down, as it did many of us. And my other boy, and this is the hardest pill to swallow, Doc. My other boy, Gregorio Ivanilidovich. I no longer love him. As much as it pains me to say, when I look in his eyes, all I see is the same cowardice that I catch when I take a glimpse of my own face in the mirror. If only the cowardice was stronger, then perhaps I could bring myself to reach over to that cocked and loaded gun that lays on the bedside behind me. And in this hellish facade once
How long a drive was this? Do you live in the valley? Where do you live? Please, sorry.
He says, Doc, sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And then the moth said, because the light was on.
That's an eternity on television. That is so long on television. Late night with Conan O'Brien. It takes you say, even Conan was getting uncomfortable because he's like, all right, Norm's being maximum norm here, and this joke's not going to come with an ending until I'm also uncomfortable. So good, man. Really good. Something made me sad, Stugotz, that I read about today as I segue here from laughing and the grief.
Something other than the death of Norm Macdonald.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
That is correct. Well, I was saying, segueing from the grief that one feels when someone you don't really know but kind of feel like you know or made you laugh, and so you've developed a relationship with that person, and that person is now gone.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that you're a little bit sad today that an institution in Miami is dying. A sports institution in Miami is going to be gone November 28th. They're getting rid of Highlight. Highlight, a weird sport that you will not find all over the country, an international sport that flourished at one time in South Florida. And 25 years after that, we tried to resurrect Dania Highlight as a challenge. We tried to take on the greatest of challenges because these frontons were largely empty warehouses. They smelled like leprosy, and there was one room in there that we still talk about today because it was smoke. It'll be smoky. The smoking room will be smoky 20 years after they've demolished that place. It'll still be there, giving cancer to anybody who walks in.
But I remember you telling me there was a time, early 80s maybe, where Dania Highlight was the place to be, where Marino was hanging out there, where Shula was hanging out there.
Marino, but what you're looking at is 86, all we had was Dolphins and Hurricanes. We didn't have any of the other sports. We were not a major league town. We were placed spring training, visited. That's when we became a little major league. But even football, the time you're talking about is really late 70s. All that there was Dolphins. You're talking late 70s, earliest of 80s. So it's not Marino who's going to be there because the place started dying soon thereafter. But it was an international thing featured in Miami Vice, the television show, a strange sport that weirdly was here in like Connecticut in the United States, imported in internationally.
It's the world's fastest game.
It imported from Spain and was a relic, really. Like, this is a super nostalgic place for us because for a moment in time, we did resurrect it. We had big thousands of people nights there playing poker with us.
I'd venture to say that Dania Highlight would have closed a lot sooner were not for the Dan Le Batard show events.
We had a lot of people who would come out to these warehouses.
Marty Fleischman owes us a debt of gratitude.
Marty Fleischman, what a blast from the past.
Beers were $1 on those nights for those tournaments. I don't think we were, saving them financially.
Oh, man. It was when you stepped into Dania Highlight, you saw the amount of seats that they had. It was overflowing. I took a private tour of Dania Highlight. I went up to the balcony, and that stuff hadn't been touched since the mid-'80s. I crawled over so many dead rats. You'd have no idea, but it was untouched.
It is hard to explain to the people listening to this how antiquated a thing this was. It stayed in the 70s. It was a giant warehouse. And during its popular time, people would go and have dinner there, and they'd sit up like you would at a play and watch the players and gamble.
I only saw it in one form at the, in the like 15 years ago, and I refused to believe people were going there to dine.
Oh, Toto was a beast that day that we went. It was kind of rigged.
The story that involves...
Spoiler alert, Highlight kind of rigged sometimes.
Don Shula, because there is a story that involves Don Shula, in Highlight, there are a couple of noises or plays that have specific names. And one of them is chick-chack when it hits the back wall and just dies. And one of the others that the entire crowd, I want you to imagine thousands of people, thousands, because I believe Dania Highlight, didn't it? How many did that house, Mike? It was more than 10,000 people once upon a time, right?
Yeah, there were. If that were a concert venue, it'd be one of the largest indoor concert venues in South Florida, excluding the arenas. It could have been turned into an awesome concert hall, honestly.
It is a giant space with a lot of seats. But the other thing that they would chant on certain plays or points was CHULA. And when Don Chula walked in and heard them chanting Chula, he started waving at them and feeling very heroic. And these were people who didn't speak English. They had no idea who he was, but Don Chula is walking around with his wife, waving at everybody like a prom queen, and you're hearing,
South Florida accent.
Estúpido, siéntate!
A chula is when the ball gets pinned in the corner, right? That or it's a girl I dated from Hialeah.
Can you get me the sound, please, of one of the things that we did there? Because we wheeled out Stugotz on a gurney. This is some of the oldest sound we have here. This is in the fronton, echoing cavernous space.
We made a case to Marty Fleischman that we could save Dania Highlight, that we could pack Dania Highlight. And so we decided to do a free event for Dania Highlight just to prove our point.
If you're running the show at Dania Highlight, your name almost has to be Marty Fleischman.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. If you're running the show at Dania Highlight, does your name have to be Marty Fleischman? We got a lot of people out there because Stugotz had a bet with Luther Campbell about how many games Miami would or wouldn't win that year. Mm-hmm. And the punishment, I don't remember what Luke would have to do. Was the punishment the same for the both of you? Would he have had to do what you ended up having to do because you lost the bet?
I don't remember. Mike, do you remember when?
I think it was a two-way bet. And you originally the bet was shaving the head,
right?
Which you ended up doing on this show a couple of times.
I have,
I feel, but you settled on. This was after the 40-Year-Old Virgin came out. You settled on a chest waxing where we would wheel you out in a gurney.
Kelly Clarkson!
You had the Hannibal Lecter mask on, and Luther Campbell and Dan would wax your chest.
Yeah, but Dan wasn't part of the bet. Yeah,
no. He stayed out of it.
Yeah.
Now,
no, he didn't.
He took an active role in your punishment, but it was an over-under on wins, and the Canes somehow hit the over. This was a year that they started the season with FSU, Oklahoma, and Virginia Tech.
I believe they also, at one point here, lose a bowl game that you will hear about here, as we want you to just listen to the sound of "This Is Me." I think Stugotz has everything he was saying right. I did not participate in the bet. There were no consequences for me.
You love doing this, including me in bets that I have nothing to do with. I mean, you did it with Golick a couple of years ago.
I did it with our careers, Stugotz. I did it with everything we've done around here. It's a bet.
Cash in that bet.
I'm good with that bet.
It's been okay for everybody involved. So here is the sound of me with. I do remember remorse here. It was with
get out of
it
here.
was not delight here that I tore with Brazilian wax a chunk of hair off of Stugotz's chest.
Emerald Ball! Emerald Ball! You lost the Emerald Ball!
He sounds like his mouth is Novocaine. Like it's not.
It really hurt, man.
He's got a Hannibal Lecter mask on, but I want you to hear two sounds specifically. One, the incredible tear of clearly I got a good chunk of hair. But then right before he goes to his pre-rehearsed taunt of the crowd, I want you to hear the pain arrive at Stugotz's brain.
Emerald Ball! Emerald Ball! You lost the Emerald Ball! Because you have that second window there where you're thinking, hey, that didn't hurt that much. and then it hurts.
I just want you to play the first two sounds back to back because that's music right there. Where Stugotz says he wants to get to the taunt, but he gives us the little. It's the most honest thing Stugotz has ever said. Where it's like, oh, that one got me.
Right there. That's the most honest I've ever been. Right there. It's the only time Dan's believed me.
You know how there's like when you stub your toe, there's that split second it takes that happens in this sound.
The audience reacted before I did.
Yeah, it takes you a second and a half to get your taunt up because of how much it's sung.
Emerald Ball! Emerald Ball! You lost the Emerald Ball!
That's the end of the first half.
I want to get to a handful of football things in a second, but I also wanted to clean something up for you as we expand around here and you wonder where to get us and how to get us, and we make announcements about podcasts that are coming soon. I want you to understand something if you're a supporter of the things that we do around here, and we appreciate your patience for the last 6 or 7 months, but we're going to be getting you a lot more stuff, much of it menu items, but a lot more show. Just our show, you're going to get more of it, and you're going to be able to have access to our show's sensibilities on Saturday night at midnight when the Full Cast podcast recaps the college football games, and they're a part of our universe now. On Sundays after football, in that hour between 7 and 8:30 that we have, we're going to be there for you doing NFL recaps, and then we're going to try as well to be churning this out every day for you, show. So know that that's on the way. Before we get to football stuff here, because football is king in the sports realm, I wanted to get to two more things, Stugotz, that I wanted to ask you about. Mike Richards, that snake. He was on Jeopardy hosting last night.
Right.
He has lost his executive producer job. He has lost his hosting job. He was the guy who was the talent hunter who became a persona non grata, shamed everything. They tried to keep him somehow. His executive producer had to get rid of him. And after all that scandal, he pops up on your television again last night as the host.
How'd that happen?
Taped episodes that I'm assuming they didn't discard. And I ask you this question: should they have discarded it? The controversy was gone. Now, I'm guessing they have to try and honor the contestants. I'm guessing they have to.
Well, of course they do.
But do they? I would have paid any amount of money to not have Mike Richards. If I'm a Jeopardy executive, Mike Richards is never showing up again. Contestants, how much I got to give you to get the hell out of here so I never have to have Mike Richards on my television again?
Well, you bring those contestants back. If you're going to do that, you bring them back with a new host. That's the only way to do it.
You give them whatever they want so that Mike Richards doesn't make people talk about this again last night. You want this in your rearview mirror. Am I wrong about this?
If you're a Jeopardy contestant, I think you probably go on the show not just for money, but to play the game. So it's going to be a lot to have to pay all those people off.
Whoever won gets screwed in that spot.
Yeah, there's going to be continuity issues.
Or you fake the whole thing and you say you need to guess the wrong answer again. But the new host this week,
I like
Kermit
it.
the Frog, because he's not going to have any controversies.
We're just spitballing here.
If you have to do that, just blur out that snake Mike Richards. Just blur him out. Have a voiceover. Dub it or something.
No. Keep the conversation going in a real Zion Nike shoe thing. This is good for Jeopardy.
I like the idea of dubbing it. Who do you dub it with, though?
This is good for Jeopardy.
This is
we're talking
awesome
about
for
it.
Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? A controversy surrounding one of the more innocuous television shows in history?
I think you pixelate his face and then change his voice.
I'm
All
with
the
you.
questions get asked like this.
Just whatever. Throw the episodes
He's
away.
slow-mo Lorne Michaels.
If you need the continuity of the contestants and being fair to them, just X him out and make it funny.
I'm surprised we haven't gone the route yet of creating like AI Alex Trebek.
Oh, wow.
You should have held that idea. We
You
could have sold that.
You could have done it last night.
Mm-hmm.
You could have done that last night. In honor, we bring back from the beyond. You want your controversy? We bring back from the beyond the likeness of Trebek to rescue this disgraced game show that doesn't actually want to be edgy with controversy.
We're going to stay away from the controversy and honor today's sensibilities. Everyone, please welcome hologram Wink Martindale.
No, you got to be careful with Wink's politics, I think.
Yes, you do.
I think he's like Chuck Woolery where he's another one of these guys.
Didn't he kiss contestants?
No, that was Richard Dawson.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
bring him back too.
Is Wink Martindale?
Do holograms have to do compliance?
Why can't they edit all of this? Why can't they just get a new host to ask all the questions and then just do cuts where, you know, just...
Oh, yeah, it's so easy.
They
Yeah.
tape 3 weeks out of the year. This
I
is
did it with
not-
a Ron McGill interview once. It's not that hard.
What?
You did it with audio.
What?
Adnan might have interviewed Ron McGill like the first week I was doing the podcast, and I lost all of Ron McGill's audio, so I had to get Ron McGill to redo the whole interview. Maybe.
God,
That might have happened.
Perhaps.
I feel for you. That was the
Feel
first
for
week.
Ron.
It was bad. I
I
was
feel
so
for
nervous.
Adnan.
Cinephile. Get it wherever you get your
You
podcast.
didn't have to admit to that one. No one knew. No one knew.
That's how great of an editor I am.
Why didn't you at least say it was like a few years ago and just lie about what show it was on?
I'm an honest guy. Open book.
I think this is good for you.
Yeah, no one noticed.
Cinephile, edgy cinephile has its own controversy. Chris
See you in
Cody,
January.
Frank Caliendo this week, and Mike Ryan.
Frank Caliendo, and Mike Ryan.
Nice.
Mike's talking face off.
I didn't even do a refresher. I've seen that movie so many times. It was like I saw it last night. Let's go. What do you want to talk about? Bye, bro.
There's only like a couple of movies I could do it without a refresher. Like Tango and Cash was one of them. I went on that. Well, no, that's the other podcast.
Do you know the name of it or no? You don't know the name of it?
Cinephobe? Cinephobe. Amin's podcast. And I didn't have to rewatch Tango and Cash. I just know it. So Point Break would be another for me.
Should I watch Tango and Cash? Because I have
Yes.
not. And I saw that it was available somewhere, and I was like, should I do this? Because I feel like the answer is no. Like, I feel like I will not enjoy that movie.
It is a special kind of empty awful. And I think you might actually enjoy it. You maybe we should have you review it around here to see if the movie, because he only cites these same 3 movies from the same era. It's Cobra, it's Tango, they're all Stallone.
Yeah.
It's Cobra, it's Tango and Cash, and it's Rocky.
Yeah, Point Break is not a Stallone movie. It's
No.
Patrick Swayze.
And-
And Roadhouse is another, by the way. Oh, is that good?
Doesn't Swayze tear out a trachea in that film?
Yes, he does.
Oh, man.
Learn from the great Sam Elliott.
Jack Palance is tremendous in Tango and
His
Cash.
finest role.
Jack Palance is great in pretty much everything, outside of that one time that he played Fidel Castro in a movie.
What is the name of the actor in Roadhouse? And we'll get to football in a second. But is it, it's Ben something. Ben Azir, Ben, I'm going to draw a blank on this.
Gazzara?
Okay, Ben Gazzara. Boog Shambi, our friend, thank you, Jessica. Boog Shambi, our friend, one time saw Ben Gazzara in the streets of New York, and he yelled, "Hey, Ben Gazzara," who apparently has a resume, perhaps of a thespian beyond Roadhouse. "Hey, Ben Gazzara, loved you in Roadhouse." Ben Gazzara was so excited to be recognized, and then what he got was "loved you in Roadhouse," which is not in any way a compliment. Mike, what are you showing us on your phone there? Is that Jack Palance playing Shay?
No, that's Jack Palance playing Fidel in 1969's Che. This was back in the time of Hollywood, where if you were ethnic, you couldn't actually play an ethnic character. We'd get Jack Palance.
It's so good. It is.
I
so
remember
good.
even as a little kid, I was like, Lawrence of Arabia, what?
Cody, why have you fallen in love with Arlovsky?
Oh, man, he did something yesterday. Not only is he just really great at breaking down, he convinced me yesterday. He turned me on the Tua Herbert thing because he thinks Herbert and Keenan Allen are going to be the best combo, and he just broke down a couple plays. He's just excellent, but that's not why I want to talk about him. He also unveiled yesterday that he has multiple avenues of talent. It's not just breaking down football. He also does a good fake dog. He can bark. I want to play it for you, and then we're going to go around the room and see who can bark the best.
Okay, today I learned Dan has an unbelievable skill. It's not giving takes. It's not playing football.
Thanks so much.
It is his ability to bark like a dog.
You want to hear it?
Yes, of course.
That's a dog.
Yeah, it's really
It's
good.
a dog.
That's
It's a
insane.
dog.
Good.
It's a dog.
It's excellent work by Dan Arlovsky.
Now, Jessica was workshopping hers a little earlier. We probably don't want to lead with her.
Was anyone else workshopping a good one?
Mike?
Man, you're putting me on the spot. I haven't.
You're our limited fake guy though.
It's
like
a tough act to
I
follow.
have a
though.
limited fake dog.
Okay, but this was talked about, but not actually workshopped. Nobody had anything.
no, we
Oh,
did.
I have one, but I shouldn't go first.
Yeah, we shouldn't lead with Jeff.
I'll do one. Ready?
Ooh,
Not bad.
all right, let me go.
Tiny dog.
Small dog. I thought Billy was going to lean in with a small dog. This is vulnerable.
Man, everyone's has been so good. I'm afraid to go.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
I don't want to go.
Stugotz, let's go. Get in here.
Is it too late to give a content warning for people listening with dogs in the car or something?
Yeah,
Probably
this
too
could be a
late.
trigger.
This is. I'm sorry if you have a dog.
You should
saying
say it
that
in dog. Probably
You're
warn them.
probably overestimating your ability to make a dog think that you're an actual dog.
My dog loves the car, though. My dog wants to live in the car.
All dogs.
I doubt that your dog wants to live in the
all
car.
dogs-
No, I'm pretty certain my dog wants to live in a car.
All
Yeah.
dogs love the car. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Do all dogs love the car? Are you ready, Jessica? Do you want to give the people anything?
What? It's DMX doing a dog. Come on.
It's not a very good.
Say it to
Guillermo.
me. Say it to somebody. Say it to me. Have logic. The sock. The head belts. Stay low. Say it to somebody.
We've got a legitimate tongue-chewing conflict for Stugotz. Stugotz across the years is always yelling, more football, give me more football, applauds Roger Goodell when every scandal he's got. The solution is more football. So they have given Stugotz 17 games of football this year. But he came in whimpering today because some of the math is changing on him, and he doesn't know if a team starts 0-3 or 0-4 if they're out of it. He's confused about where the must-win games are.
Right.
They've changed the numbers on him, and he doesn't know how important these games are when they represent 1/17 of the schedule instead of 1/16 of the schedule, and he seems legitimately baffled.
I am. I mean, 0-4 might be the new 0-3. They say if you go 0-3 in a 16-game season, you're not making the playoffs. But perhaps in a 17-game season, you can make the playoffs. So now 0-4 is like the new benchmark of not making the playoffs. I'm just trying to figure out when I could say a game is a must-win. That's really what I'm trying. And I'm confused. This whole thing, one game, one extra week has thrown everything off, man.
I think we can all agree that that's the most important thing. When can Stugotz start declaring games are must win?
Well, what's ever stopped him before on must wins? I don't even know what his math is on this. Is there any other place it's making an appearance other than between 0-3 and 0-4?
It's more of a gut feeling, but it was based on a 16-game schedule. And now that we have a 17-game schedule, I'm not feeling the same things that I felt in all the other week twos before this year. I'm just not feeling them. Like, I don't feel the need to say must win in week 2 because they have 15 more games after this. 15.
But when they had 14, you were willing to say
must
that.
win. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Stugotz is right because statistically after the first 3 or 4 weeks, everyone likes to say, well, a team that's gone 0-3 has never made the playoffs, or a team that's gone 0-4 has only made it once. Now we don't really know what's going to happen because there's that extra week.
Right.
So the math changes, and I'm not good at math.
Any other places, Stugotz, where you're worried about the 17-game schedule throwing off your habits, throwing off what it is that you know what to say into a microphone beyond the must-win?
Preseason and making predictions.
Yeah.
Oh, that team's 8-8.
Yeah.
Now I don't have a 500 record to go to.
8-8-1.
They should have thought about me.
8-8-1. Yes,
I
which
didn't
is
get into sports to do math.
Stugotz spent all of last season telling us how important one of the ties would be.
The Eagles tie. Yeah.
And it didn't end up being important, I don't think, in any way.
No,
did it?
No. The Eagles didn't make the
Came close,
playoffs. Doug
though.
Peterson lost his job.
Came close to mattering.
You spent the whole season obsessed
It
with
almost did, Dan.
with a single tie.
It was close.
And now we're at 17 games, and yes, 8-1 gets us there. With things that you're looking for this weekend, and we're going to continue over the remainder of the week. The bucket of death, the grid of death. We've got costumes to wear. We've got failures. We talked about how shocking the whole Aaron Rodgers thing was. I don't believe any of us have any explanations for what we saw other than the Saints are really good at defense, but that still looked super weird.
I saw a play in which there was just no blocking for Aaron Rodgers. Now, I didn't watch this game because I was at another one, but he still threw an absolute dime. So I don't think you can say he was tanking. He threw one of the nicest passes I've ever seen.
There's an explanation, I'm sure, whether it's offensive line or something else. It's not that he got bad in the last 6 months.
It's also never that defense is really, really good, as you pointed out earlier. Like, the defense is really good. Still, I've seen Aaron carve up great defenses before.
Is Cam Jordan yet one of these unblockable guys? Does he count in the growing pantheon of these, total freaks that you simply can't block coming around the edge?
He's been like a tier 2 guy for a long time, and he's surrounded by a very good defense. We still have to wrap our brains around it because Aaron Rodgers is at that age where historically you're supposed to start sliding. I think we can all agree, as great as Aaron Rodgers was last year, MVP, still not the guy maybe he was 4 years ago, where it's just like, holy cow, I've never seen anything like this.
The drop's not going to be that kind of precipitous.
No, but we've gotten
6
spoiled.
months.
We've gotten spoiled with Tom Brady, thinking that if you're the best, you're supposed to age that way.
Everyone needs to relax. All right. He didn't play any of the preseason. I think I saw a stat. A lot of the quarterbacks that didn't play any of the preseason didn't play well in week 1. RELAX. Relax.
That's his famous quote, but it's the MVP of the league, and it was a giant turd. The most surprising of the giant turds on Sunday.
But if we all just relax, what are we going to talk about on the radio?
Right. I still think he tanked, Dan. I really do.
I mean,
you could do it that way.
Very
That's
minor.
You ask.
You can't do it over the top.
He's like a genie of. He's a piano bar and a genie. You ask Jessica, and the option's still available to us. Of you could just accuse him of giant scandalous cheating.
The guy had 5 interceptions last year, the entire season. He had 2 in the first game. He is on track for 34, 17 games.
The numbers are totally different now.
It's crazy.
On the other side of the ball, Jameis Winston, I thought that the breakdown of the stats that we gave earlier, but this was on the other end of the spectrum as Ryan Fitzpatrick goes out again. Stugotz. Jameis Winston could not start last year. Jameis Winston, in a league that Aaron Rodgers changed because you do not turn the ball over, he threw for whatever it was, 4,000, 5,000 yards, ton of yards, but the difference between Tampa Bay being a champion and being a team that didn't make the playoffs was all of Jameis Winston's turnovers and recklessness.
Mm-hmm. And that defense got really, really good.
But
yes,
it was a
for the
good
most part,
defense.
you're right.
It was a good defense.
Yes.
And Jameis Winston got benched, couldn't get a starting job, sits for an entire year, and then comes out and his game manager guy who throws a whole bunch of touchdowns, doesn't have to do a lot offensively because he keeps getting the ball back because it's the worst game we've ever seen Aaron Rodgers and the Packers play. But what do you expect from Jameis Winston? Like, are we going to – I don't know how to do some of this because of what happened last year with Josh Allen. It was so confusing to me to see Josh Allen eliminate turnovers, even though he was still reckless and flippant with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Sean Payton can coach the reckless and the turnovers out of Jameis Winston?
I do. Here's why. Like, you talk about all these quarterback whisperers. It was Adam Gase for a while.
But Bruce Arians couldn't, and what we're saying is Arians could not, but Sean Payton can.
But maybe Sean Payton is the quarterback whisperer. Payton found Tony Romo. He made turned Breeze, although Breeze was pretty good already, into an elite Hall of Fame quarterback, Taysom Hill, and now he's doing it with Jameis Winston. So I think if there's anyone who could do it, it would be Sean Payton.
You're saying Sean Payton is appreciably better at something quarterback related that Bruce Arians does not have any access to. Under Bruce Arians, that team was sub 500. He was the worst turnover thing you see in the league, double anybody else. Like, there wasn't anybody turning the ball over like that. And if you think that's an ability Sean Payton has, I would caution you that I'm guessing the turnovers are coming. I'm guessing with pressure, you're going, like, it's not going to look like that game on Sunday for Jameis Winston every week.
I don't know if Payton has that ability. What I'm saying is, if there's a coach that has that ability, I believe it to be Sean Payton.
If there's a coach, I would say he's in Buffalo because that's the guy who actually did it last year.
I think you guys are overthinking this. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions in 2019 on the Bucs. And you know what he did in 2020? He got LASIK. Now he can actually see. This is a different quarterback.
Are we buying that? I keep hearing that.
Dan,
a lot of
wouldn't
people
you
are,
buy that
Dan.
more than coaching?
He literally said in college, like he couldn't see, like everything was blurry. I think he said that on Hard Knocks,
He
right?
didn't need to say it. Every time he got a first down or ran a play, he was squinting at the sidelines trying to see. It was very obvious. And Dan, when you're talking about the difference between Bruce Arians and Sean Payton, they're both really good coaches. They're both Super Bowl winners. Why not LASIK as an explanation?
Dan, who would you rather have? Jameis Winston or Tua?
Wow. Who would you rather have?
I don't know. I just
Say
asked
it.
Tony back here, and I was just like, ugh. Granted, I was saying last year, I think Jameis is better than people give him credit for, as we saw in week 1. But I don't want to answer the question.
Man, don't. I care about
So you threw it at Dan.
Are we convinced Payton is that good of a coach?
I like your question. A lot of bad losses in the postseason on that guy's record.
Terrible losses.
As a favorite. Ooh, bad stuff. Now, he's gotten hosed by some calls, but that doesn't explain everything.
Would you rather have Brian Flores or Sean Payton?
I would rather have Sean Payton.
Which do you guys think? I don't know why you would do what you just did there. Homer, apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
People have been praising Brian Flores for 3 seasons. And then we were just having the conversation, is Sean Payton actually good? So I
They've
was
been
just
praising
asking the
Sean
question.
Payton for 15 seasons. I mean,
People could say Brian Flores won that game last week.
Looks like Billy Shoes and Brian Flores.
The way he handled that Xavier Howard thing, everybody thought he was gone. Who makes a big play at the end? Xavier Howard. People didn't think he was even going to be on this team.
One thing that we should have checked yesterday in tossing out Tua's record, and that's what Greg and Stugotz were doing. That record is games that Tua started. It's not games that Tua finished. You're adding like at least 2 games where Ryan Fitzpatrick won Tua a game and added to that record. Then again, I should remind the audience, I love Tua as my own son. He's my favorite quarterback in the league. I would never disparage him, but if you're going to say 8-3, it's actually closer to 6-5.
But don't disparage him. You will get the
If he
masses.
finishes those
Wait,
games-
what are you're attaching a couple of losses to Tua in games that they
Yeah.
won?
Yeah, because they
Okay.
won because of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Or some other people would say that.
The closer.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick wins that Raiders game.
Less
What-
respectful people would say something
less
like that.
me never.
Well, then you'd have to give Tua the win when he came in and threw 2 passes and they won 24-0.
Boom.
When it boom.
7-5.
I don't think I do. Although I love him, sure.
Like your son.
If I were to make the analysis for what it is that we're talking about, you have to be right, okay? And what you guys are saying, I don't want to be skeptical of it, because if he actually couldn't see and can now see, that would be a discernible difference in those turnovers, if that's a real thing. If you guys believe that after, and you're allowed to believe it, after all the investments they make at this position, it was just overlooked. Hey, our quarterback's blind. He's thrown 30 interceptions. With all the testing they do in that sport, nobody knew. Hey, our quarterback doesn't know when he's throwing it to their team and doesn't know when he's throwing it to our team.
Did you just give us permission to believe that?
The
Very
reason,
nice of you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm giving you permission because the thing I'm
better
saying
now.
is I don't want to reject it. If Jameis Winston is indeed a quarterback who could throw only 5 interceptions this year because Sean Payton or LASIK or whatever, I'd be willing to believe, okay, he couldn't see before. If they can indeed get him from 30 to 5 or 30 to even single digits, I would say, okay, maybe it was that for the Bucs, before they got Tom Brady, they were playing a blind man at quarterback and nobody noticed it.
We actually had Chris Sims on. He was a Buck and a Titan. He said the first time he ever got his eyes checked was by the Tennessee Titans. And remember, the Bucs had a decision to make. Mariota or Winston. The Titans ended up with Mariota. Boom. The Bucs don't test for vision.
They dropped the buck.
I don't think that's a saying.
What?
They dropped the buck?
That was a terrible joke.
You pass the buck or the buck stops here. But I don't
Yeah,
think you
the
drop
buck
a
stops
buck.
here. Yep. I don't want to blame anyone. I won't blame anyone. It's on me. I should have corrected myself. But my mom did die, and Chris Cody fed me that line.
The pandemic, awful as it has been for all of us, has birthed a couple of things that will endure beyond the pandemic. Zoom. Last night you saw Versus again, Fat Joe and Ja Rule. These are things that are going to be popular for a while. What are the big winners from the pandemic? Guillermo, put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. bigger pandemic winner, Zoom or Versus?
Tiger King.
Billionaires.
Well, yes, billionaires
good,
are
yeah.
a different
No
category.
one more than
Okay,
billionaires.
But they're always winning.
No, yes, they are, but they've never won more than they have recently. Tony, Juju, can you guys give me? I did not see what was happening. I just see every time they do one of these things, people are buzzing. I saw now that Jermaine Dupri was asking for Diddy, and Diddy's like, no one makes me do that except Dre.
Right.
The only Jermaine Dupri story that I have for you, I can't even believe Jermaine Dupri. He must be the Stugotz of the rap world in terms of delusional confidence. Like, what are you doing going at Diddy with your resume? The only story I can tell you about Jermaine Dupri is being at Mokai or some equivalent around here one time at a Super Bowl party, coming around the corner and running into Shaquille O'Neal, who had Jermaine Dupri on his right shoulder, sitting on his right shoulder like a parrot.
Come on.
I'm not kidding you. Just sitting there like he was walking around. He was walking around the bar that way. How small is Jermaine Dupri? It's my only Jermaine Dupri story.
He's listed as 5'4".
Yeah. JD made partially with the Welcome to Atlanta song, kind of made throwback jerseys, oversized throwback jerseys cool. And everyone thought he just ordered a big one. That was a normal sized jersey. And everyone just started wearing the oversized ones. I think he owes his entire career, basically. I'm reading Damon John's Founding FUBU book, which is I'm listening to it, but it's a good read, real
Right.
page turner.
Mm-hmm.
And Damon John couldn't make a tour as a backup dancer, and JD took his slot because Damon John was just hustling, working at the Red Lobster. And because of that, we have JD now calling out Diddy.
Give me what happened last night. A lot of people like to make fun of Ja Rule. Ja Rule had a hell of a run.
Not only did he have a hell of a run, he had a hell of a versus. Juju, I know that we watched it pretty intently, and there was like 500,000 people that were watching at one point, which is crazy because they sell out stadiums and stuff. So Juju and I have a confession to make. Well, I really have a confession to make. And not that, again, salute to Terror Squad, salute to Fat Joe, Joey Crack. On a recent episode of Mystery Crate, and Juju may want to step away from this, I claimed, again, slanderously, that Fat Joe has Beijing in his beard. Because it's too perfect. It never moves. It's like, it's so excellent, right? It was perfect during the show.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Does Fat Joe have Beijing in his beard?
Also put it on the poll. Salute to Joey Crack and Terror Squad.
Yes. Yes or no? And the answer should be yes and yes. Juju, what was your favorite part from was it Ja Rule taking off his shirt because he still looks ripped after? How old is Ja Rule, by the way? Does anybody know? He's 40s.
That was definitely not my favorite part. Salute to Ja Rule, but I did not enjoy that part. Also, salute to JD. He got hits. I think y'all underestimating JD. Who can forget about the Brat? Who can forget about Criss Cross? Who can forget about these timeless hits he's put in the world? Franchise.
Franchise boys. I forgot about that.
Come on, Diddy, get your check right. Salute to Diddy. But back to Fat Joe. Fat Joe, he pretty much lost the whole shebang. It was terrible for Fat Joe. Salute to the Terror Squad. But it was terrible.
Put it on the poll again, Guillermo. Salute to the Terror Squad.
I was at a VMAs where there was this whole beef with the Terror Squad and G Unit, and I was scared. Yeah. I was legitimately scared.
Ja Rule, by the way, 45.
Oh, Stu, please take a look at what he looked like last night. Okay. It was incredible.
Right.
Anyways, Juju, how can you say that Fat Joe lost? Once he played Make It Rain, the game was over. He brought out Birkins for Remy Ma, for Ashanti. By the way, Ashanti still kicking, still doing her thing.
Semantics. It was all semantics on Fat Joe's part. He even said he needed to take a break because he wanted to change clothes. How dare you, sir? The hip hop guys are looking down and are ashamed of you. Salute to you, sir. I love you, but how dare you? I'm ashamed of you. And you come back outside. I thought you was gonna come out wearing something crazy, ridiculous. You came out in something I would have wore to the store, man. Come on, get real. Salute to Fat Joe, though.
We're all afraid of G Unit and Terror Squad because of that Tony Yayo incident, I think.
Who else are you guys saluting with every criticism?
Well, we salute everybody.
We don't want
Dan,
smoke.
salute to you also.
Yeah.
Anybody that we take out in the show, we also salute them highly.
But
Very kind of you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This was a bit of an upset because Fat Joe is actually still putting out decent music. the streets still bump to. I sound ridiculous.
You
Streets
do.
still bumping Fat Joe, or Ja Rule is more of a joke now, isn't he?
I don't know if he's a joke. Would you consider him a joke, Juju? Like, he's still like a rap icon.
Absolutely not. He's a joke. He's not a joke. He did the commercial last year for the restaurant, so everybody thought he was a joke. The Monte Cristos or Papa Cristos commercial, people thought he fell off of because of that. He was just getting some money. And the Fire Festival, hey, it fell through. It's not his fault. You know what I mean? It fell
Salute to
through.
Fire Festival.
Yes,
Yeah.
salute
I mean,
to
it
Fire
is
Festival.
Juju,
Well,
it's kind of
it
his
is his
fault.
fault.
It was
Juju,
a
come
Milwaukee
on.
Bucks
Come on.
performance.
Oh, the Bucks one was
The
bad.
Bucks
Yeah.
performance. It was just all the songs with Ashanti and J-Lo. You had this guy with like really an angry voice. Didn't really match his stature, but then he just started doing R&B pop hits, and you can't just, be singing Murder Inc. at the same time.
Guillermo, can you put it on the poll, please? Did Ja take his shirt off because Joe is fat?
I saw Ja Rule at Atlantis once. As a kid, I was on a cruise taking a tour of the aquarium. Ja Rule walked through the lobby. Then behind him, Alonzo Mourning. Very different heights.
Very different.
So,
Salute to Murder Inc. though.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Change the game.
Aquarium.
So,
Yes,
Juju,
look at the aquarium. Ja Rule, I think y'all forgetting about his hits too. He came out, he was doing songs with Jay-Z, DMX. He came out under DMX. He came out pretty much rougher, and he found his lane. And then 50 Cent came in and made fun of him for the lane, and then took over that specific lane. So it was all unfortunate. But Ja Rule's hits was too powerful. And that's a testament to his hits.
Where are you on 50 Cent ending Ja Rule? Was the end coming anyway, or 50 Cent did that?
Absolutely not. 50 Cent did that with his bare hands. Salute to 50 Cent. Salute to Lloyd Banks.
You're
All
gonna
of G
salute
Unit.
Yayo.
All of G Unit.
Yayo's-
Yeah.
If you don't salute him, you got
John
problems.
Cena. Salute to John Cena.
Okay, enough with the salutes.
He actually did it himself, and it was unfortunate. He put out 1,000 diss songs on Ja Rule, and it was pretty embarrassing. But salute to Ja Rule, salute to Ashanti.
Okay, thank you.
Salute to Irv Gotti.
yes.
Okay, all right, enough with the salutes. No, okay, that one's not a salute. Why is that one not a
any
salute?
problems. I think we have to look it up. Maybe I should rescind that, but no, I'm not going to rescind that. A salute to everybody.
I don't know about you, Stugotz, but having everyone in studio has made the feeling around this show feel a great deal better. There has been a general lack of patience with us from the audience because they want their show the way they get their show. And we've had people on Zoom, and the show requires chemistry of people being able to have eye contact and everything else. So I think we're on the other side of it, and I think we get to now be together more often than not. So I hope that the show feels a little more like you are accustomed to 18 or 20 months ago, but that will not stop, Stugotz. The criticism from pouring in. WTF happened to this show? It sucks now. These new people are not funny in the slightest.
He's that guy.
This show was so much better when they were on ESPN.
He's that guy.
It was actually Carson Palmer when the targeting below the knee rule came in, but Dan has to find another way to criticize Brady.
He's that guy.
You're always looking for opportunities to criticize Brady in defense of that guy.
Am I?
Yeah.
Is that right? Go ahead and list all the critical things I've said about Brady in all the years that you've known me. List them all.
You said he was finished because he couldn't throw the deep ball anymore after week 3 of a season, I think 12 years ago. I mean, he's put together another Hall of Fame career since. That's it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
the list. It is true. I thought he was going to age like every human being at the position before him. And my controversial take is that he wouldn't be a champion at 44 years old. And I've been wrong across 7 years. There's no disputing this. I was like, how do you notice a quarterback aging when it's in the same uniform? Does it happen the way it just happened to Aaron Rodgers in the last 6 months? Or does it happen with the imperceptible lack of accuracy in the deep ball? Hasn't mattered. That team, incidentally, when it comes to the Chiefs and how we talk about the Chiefs, I do believe people need to be scared about underestimating that Antonio Brown sitting out that amount of time and not having actual timing with Tom Brady
Yeah.
might make that team extra scary offensively because it doesn't have to be what he was doing with Mike Evans last year. It could be just Antonio Brown looking a hell of a lot like Antonio Brown from 2 years ago.
Me and Mike were making the point last week that Mike Evans, if Antonio Brown's going to continue to do this, is a great point by you. Mike Evans is their third wide receiver. I mean, what is happening?
Well, and then Gronk. And then Gronk, after not playing for a while, it is astounding how smart Brady was with where it is that he chose. From this weekend, when you guys were listening to football, how many new voices did you hear out there doing commentaries? Stugotz, because Greg Olson was in one place. I did not think of the guy who looks like a sitcom dad as a broadcaster, but then I heard him analyzing the game. Where were there some surprises for you hearing the accents and the framings on the game?
Well, it's always nice to reacquaint yourself with the NFL broadcast pairings at the beginning of every season. And so I'm like, who's that doing Lions and Niners? So I had to Google it. I looked it up. Kevin Kugler, I don't think is necessarily a household name. I think he's done Fox games for a couple of years. He was with Mark Sanchez. And I was like, Mark Sanchez doing games. I had no idea.
Sanchez.
Were you trying to do his?
I didn't feed him that one.
Yeah, he was a Sanchez.
That was his nickname.
I know, but that's it
Sanchez.
didn't sound like what you said, though. It sounded like you just said Sanchez.
Sanchez.
Yeah.
Tomato. I mean, I didn't say Sanchez. I don't know what you heard. I clearly said Sanchez.
He wasn't, though. We learned that together. The Sanchez.
We did learn that as a show, as a country.
Looking so good for a while.
Can we just stop?
I mean, he
right
still
now?
looks good.
Oh, he'll always look good.
Mark
I mean,
Sanchez.
come on.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll always look good. I could see a gut coming. Yeah.
Really?
A little spare tire, as they call it. It's when you have a tummy.
When you're crushing at USC and you're in that uniform, you've got that head of hair. It's all downhill from there.
I'm almost glad that I'm not attractive for that very reason.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Like, because there's not
Really?
far for me to fall. Yeah.
Don't say that about
Absolutely.
yourself.
Well, it would be a lot worse to be an uber attractive person and then be ugly and people be like, you used to be so attractive. I'm fine being like plain Jane Billy.
There's a lot of
you know?
pressure on being really good looking. Not that I know. I'm just saying. Like, I could imagine that pressure.
I
Like,
have enough
I wake up every
stress in my
morning.
life.
Yeah, I wake up every morning like nothing special. I'm good.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Is there a lot of pressure on being really good looking? Aren't there a few? I don't know if you guys saw this, but Rob Lowe is like 60 years old. Rob Lowe, I don't know how, Stugotz. You're not conquering the entire world by being as handsome as you've always been and being able to hear lines fed into your ears so well.
I can barely hear them.
I don't understand why you're not George Clooney with all the gifts you've been given.
What, the booger in my nose?
Just all the gifts you've been given. A never-aging beauty across the eternities.
Speaking of 60, the big 6-0, you want to feel old? Dan Marino, 60.
Still looking great for 60, by
Still
the way.
looking
He
great.
looks amazing.
Doesn't
He
look
really
a
does.
day over 43.
The one that I was going to point out, you've seen the recent commercial with Rob Lowe, right? He was good looking 40 years ago, and he's still good looking. It looks like Rob Lowe is in the John Stamos category of never aging, forever looking young. Mario Lopez is out here damn near 50 and has had so much work done on his face that he still looks young.
Paul Rudd also has never aged. He has looked the same age since he was born.
But is Paul Rudd considered one of these guys who is beautiful? Because I'm not talking about just guys who haven't aged. I'm talking about guys who don't look like they've aged. And to Billy's fear, he doesn't want to be good looking because in 30 years, he might not be any longer someone who's good looking.
I think women find him attractive, Paul Rudd. Yes.
But I think that's increased over time by virtue of his lack of aging. I think if like in 2005 in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, he's just a guy. But by the time we get to Ant-Man, it's like this dude's aged 12 years and looks exactly the same. His attractiveness has gone up over time.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Carell has been the same thing. Hasn't he gotten a whole bunch of silver fox? He did for a minute there. I don't know whether he's still getting that or not, but that the 40-year-old virgin is not aging the way that I thought it was. If you had told me that those guys were going to be, smoking hot sex symbols into their 50s.
I thought you meant how problematic the movie was.
There's some speculation back here of plugs for Steve Carell, by the way.
Have you guys gotten to the bottom of whether or not Drew Brees has plugs or not?
I mean, Dan, I don't think we need to speculate that.
We have to get to the bottom of it.
I do think we need to crown Mike Ryan as our intrepid. Like, he should take the corner of hair plugs as in he bursts into the room.
I have a question about hair plugs, Mike, as the expert. How does that work, right? Are they putting it? Yeah, no, but how does it change color to match the rest of the color of your hair? Like, if I were to get, like, this artificial hair or whatever put into my head the same color as the rest of my hair, as my hair changes colors, like, why wouldn't it look like continents on an ocean?
Well, we have an expert in the room. So.
Well, don't they change your hair with your hair?
What?
Is that, is there not, are there not?
You just dye all the hair the same color.
But I thought that there were procedures involved.
Taking like lower back hairs and putting them on your head or something?
That use whatever the seeds of hair are from your own head and then put it back in your head.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of people have the scar on the back of their head when they shave it down. It's because that's where the hair is thicker around the horseshoe, and they regrow hair there.
Yeah, if you're interested in beard replacement, I'd direct you to how I completely wasted Mina Kimes' time last Friday. We did all of that.
That was epic.
So you can listen to that and hear about beard replacement.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll save your time. I've already wasted enough time.
But what was the question you wanted to ask, Mike, for the expertise that you require from Meadowlark's Plugs
Steve Carell, Mike.
correspondent?
Yeah,
Steve
100%.
Carell.
If you watch the first episode of The Office, now there's a rumor out there that they meant to do that way. Explain the Daily Show. No, he absolutely had a really good hair transplant. I'm talking McConaughey, and I read McConaughey's book, Real Page Turner.
You listened?
Yep. You have to listen to that book, though. You have to. If I recommend an audio experience, and honestly, it's changed my life. Matthew McConaughey's Greenlight book. The first half is all bullshit. The first half is just a bunch of drunk stories from the bar, and you don't believe a single word, but it's well told. And the second half of the book, there's a lot of great lessons in there. He says that he took pills to regenerate his hair. Come on, Matthew. I may have been born at night, but not last night.
That is a real thing, though. Men can take these like hormone blocking pills when their hair starts thinning, and it will stop the hair thinning process.
Yeah, I've looked into
What
it.
pills?
You wanna see
Just
my
asking for
IG?
the audience. In case anyone in the audience is interested, what pills are those?
There's Propecia and
I think the way you know if a celebrity has hair plugs or new hair or a hair transplant is when you Google their name and the first autofill on Google is new hair. Drew Brees right now, the first autofill result was Drew Brees new hair.
Well, that happened to me earlier in the week when I did Joe Judge laps.
Right.
That didn't really work out for me on
No,
Twitter.
it did
'Cause
not.
That was a fake story. That's just a personal experience, though.
Mike, Dan wanted us to dig deeper on Payton. You're laughing?
on which Payton?
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton?
Yeah.
There's certainly look, he was recently divorced, right? So you got to have a bit of a glow up. I mean,
Right.
he's going through it. You see those shoes? Been there.
How about Breeze? No reason to dig?
TV. And no,
Okay.
absolutely no reason to dig. I mean, it's night and day difference. Keyshawn Johnson, Botox.
What show were you listening to that you thought that I wanted Sean Payton plug
It's a good
appraisals?
question. It's a good question. It's a good question. Got coach and quarterback confused. Totally fair question.
Peyton Manning probably dyes his hair.
Probably.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're really good at this.
Yeah, the only time I've ever been wrong was with Jeff Passan. I apologize on the air. I wore that. I got up close. He was very defensive. So if I've wronged you, feel free to hit me up and we can talk it out. But I can sort out a good lie too.
Surprisingly old Jeff Passan.
How old is he?
He's like 40 plus, I think.
No way.
Yeah, I thought yeah.
You'd think you'd know his age to say that.
That's what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
You know, he has this youthful marionette appearance, but he's like a 40-year-old man.
I mean, the demands of HD television, as you know,
Steroids.
men and women alike, it's really tough. It's really tough. That's why Matt Berry feels compelled to every 3 weeks wrap his hair in plastic wrap and do the damn thing.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Does Jeff Passan have a youthful marionette appearance?
He looks like a kid.
It is the hair. It's the color of the hair. It is the dark hair. Again, though, I really want to seize in on marionette. I just want to be clear on what you're accusing Jeff Passan of so that when it lands on
It's not
his
an
lap,
accusation. That's a compliment, is it not?
calling someone a marionette.
A youthful one.
No, that's like creepy haunted doll vibes, Billy.
It's someone who does not move with human characteristics. It's someone who moves in a bit of a stiff and starched fashion, a rigid, dry cleaned personality.
Would you say Nick Saban has a good dye job?
It's a rusty brown that
He's 69 years old, and when he was in Michigan State, he was like all gray. He's also balding. He does a very good job of disguising these things.
I love the idea of Chris Cody having a hair implant that comes in a different color than the rest of his hair. Like a failed hair transplant, something that
blonde
leaves-
tips or something.
No, I'm just saying like
Jet black.
Just a cul-de-sac.
I mean, the
of,
hairs
like,
on my body are not different colors though, so that'd be tough.
a cul-de-sac of burnt lawn color is what I'm talking about. A patch of lawn that hasn't gotten enough of the sprinkler, where the sprinkler doesn't hit, just a patch that time forgot.
As a lawn guy, there's nothing more frustrating than that one patch of grass that just is dead for no reason.
Have you seen this video that went viral yesterday of people cheating with their lawns and just spray painting them green with organic spray?
It's called the Augusta Groundskeepers, Mike.
That makes sense for that part of the country.
What's wrong with
Wow,
that? Do you
they've
judge
never-
it?
It's a
We've
good
never
idea.
called them out in terms of the great cheaters in sports. Augusta Groundskeepers.
Do you think that's cheating? Would you not do it? Is it less honorable? As I just learned that Chris, as a lawn guy, I didn't know that was.
Me and Mike, we like to
I
make
know
the
you
rounds every
secure
night.
the perimeter
Yeah.
at the end of the night, but are you okay with the greening of your grass?
For the people of the audience, what's the name of that spray? Not for me. I'm just,
Propecia, I think. Yeah, Procretia. It's cheating. It's not fair. I got this one dead spot in my grass, and I'm trying everything for, and I'm like a dog with a bone on this one. I'm wrong.
All that
every
matters
friggin'
is
week.
that it looks good, though. It's not cheating.
Right.
The goal is to have grass that looks good. If I look out in my lawn and I see green, looks good.
Well, that's my position on getting hair plugs. All I'm doing to the audience is I'm good at calling it out because I'm projecting my own insecurities. I want to be Matthew McConaughey. I want to be Drew Brees. I want that in the worst way. But what I don't want is the Dom Capers. Like, I'm not desperate enough to have a bad one.
Like, how much is Breeze spending if you had to get? I mean, he might get it for free because he's Breeze, but if you wanted to get the Breeze treatment, how much do you think that's costing?
Ooh. I got to fly to Turkey for that.
What if it's real?
You
it
down?
could be
You-
real.
It's not real.
The real ones, no.
It could be real. Why not? He was wearing a helmet all this time, right? He takes off his helmet. In your lawn analogy, if you leave like a table out on the lawn, right? The grass dies underneath it, but once you move the table, the grass will grow back.
But
Maybe that's what
But
happens.
he had these strands, these Jimbo Fisher strands of last hanging on. Like,
Just Google his playing days. Your hairline doesn't move
he
forward
would take
like
his
that.
helmet off, and it would just be like 7 strands of hair.
But it's helmet head, to Billy's
Exactly,
point.
helmet
right,
head.
Right.
Now the helmet's gone.
He does look really good, though.
See?
Congratulations
Thank you,
to
Jess.
him.
He looks
He looks-
fantastic.
He
She
looks
agrees
the
with us.
part.
Mhm.
Whatever he's doing, he did a good job.
He looks younger, but I think we glossed over something, and I need the audience right now in a game that we like to go ahead and play. Google this. Just go to image search and Dom Capers. I just want you to drink this in with us because I don't know whether that's bad advice. I don't know whether that's bad judgment. I don't know whether anyone is saying anything to him. I don't know if he has loved ones that say, look, you are a coordinator. You're someone in the NFL who makes a decent amount of money. How about we not make it whatever it is that you're presently looking at, where it looks like before they got good at this is when he got it done, that he was in that window before science was really good at this.
Yeah.
It was after the toupee. It's after, like, the toupee.
It's all right.
At one time in history, somebody would just grab a wig and put it on their head, and that was the way that we did it. And then science, this can't be more than 30 years old, right? The hair replacement thing is a new thing, but I think Capers got caught in a purgatory, in a window there when he got his done.
Oh, back in the day, you had to get a system. Some of us still apply the system. I don't know why. It feels third rail. I'm not going to do it, but just watch baseball tonight. And also Bill Self. Why am I so afraid of saying that person has a system?
Where's the third rail? I don't. Is it just an ESPN
I
third
can't
rail?
bring myself to. It's the most obvious one ever.
You can't.
It hasn't changed.
You can't
No.
just shout it
Say
at the
it.
end
No.
of a gymnastics
No.
dismount to end the show.
You'll feel good. Say it.
No.
Say it.
No, I'm
Stick
too
the
afraid.
landing. Stick it.
Are we talking about Ravi?
This man cares about boxing. When I think about boxing, it's one of the first faces and voices that I think of. He's obviously done broadcasting across a number of years, a number of sports. But I think I can say this, Jim, as a historian, and thank you for joining us. Your first love in sports is boxing, is it not? I feel that off you, even if it's not true.
I think that that's a fair enough statement. You know, I love all sports by and large, and as you point out, have covered virtually everything at some time or another. But I have a very treasured, special memory of my mother taking me into a room when I was 6 years old at an adult party down the street and saying, "Sit here on the sofa." Because you're going to watch the Friday night fights, Sugar Ray Robinson versus Bobo Olson. It's their second fight. And the reason you're going to do this is because if your father were here, he had died the year before. If your father were here, this is what you and he would be doing. So I sat on that sofa and watched Sugar Ray Robinson against Bobo Olson. And as she told me, a guy named Don Dunphy was going to tell me everything that I needed to know about boxing. And I became a big fan, even at age 6, and watched Friday night fights sponsored by Gillette for years afterward. And I have to say that, you know, in all the fights I've covered, and there are hundreds, maybe thousands of them, I haven't counted, I still have a vague recollection of Dunphy's voice and Dunphy's style in my ear. And there was a simplicity about the way that he covered the sport that sort of dignified it. And when I first started calling boxing matches, I thought to myself, okay, if there's anything worth imitating, it's probably what you heard first, what Dunphy did. And I have no idea whether my style is really analogous to his, but in my heart and in my mind, I think he's my model.
Do you know the number of times that you have cared so much about what you're broadcasting that you have cried on air?
The number of times? I have no idea. Too many. I obviously, you wish that you can be in control of your emotions in every circumstance. But as the host of HBO Boxing, I've had to do several times. I've had to do eulogies, memoriams at the end of the telecast for people whom I dearly loved. You know, I dare anyone to have a relationship, friendship of the kind that I had with Emmanuel Stewart, or to have the kind of reverence that I had for Muhammad Ali, my first true hero in life. And to be able to do those eulogies without cracking up a little bit, that's not in me. I've proven that over and over again. And, I cried on camera before social media, and I've cried on camera during the social media era. And obviously you get a much bigger negative response in the days of social media, but I don't know about it. I don't pay any attention. I don't much want to know what people have to say about that element. It's interesting that you bring it up so early in the interview. But I can't walk away from that. I can't pretend it didn't happen. It was me. It is me. And I've had a lot of boxing fans come up to me and compliment me for the fact that I show that I care.
I love that you care that way. I didn't mean to suggest that it was anything other than you caring when it is, it doesn't need to be that level of grief. You can be moved enough, right? I don't think I have this wrong, whether it's, Golovkin's body punches or Miguel Cotto retiring or Juan Manuel Marquez knocking out Manny Pacquiao. Like you deeply care about what it is that you're watching, the craftsmanship of it and the emotion of it and the courage involved with doing it.
Well, if any of those things brought me to tears, it was Cotto retiring probably. But, I don't think I've ever wept about Gennadi's body punches. I might have wept if I had gotten hit with one of them. And I think most people would. But yeah, it's there. There's a long record of it. People talk about it on the web and stuff like that. It's not my concern when I go to do a telecast. I'm thinking of information and trying to deliver as broad an assortment of useful and understandable information to the audience as I can deliver.
What do you make of the sport right now at this time? We've been talking for weeks here about the sideshow elements and the way that these are becoming events that don't necessarily, the big pay-per-view events don't necessarily have to do anything with the excellence of boxing or some of the things that you love about boxing, and yet still it's being made popular with young people, at least in part because some of the people fighting who aren't legitimate fighters, they are super famous and they're luring young people in a way that young people aren't generally lured to boxing.
Well, let me start with my very routine and often spoken first response, which is, I've been in this game a long time, and I have read enough and paid enough attention to history to know that boxing has been dead for 129 years, and I expect it to remain in the eyes of many in the public forum a dead, debilitated, corrupted, and ultimately not essential sport. It's not the way I feel about it. I think that there's a fundamental resonance in the experience of being a fighter or of watching fighters that is tremendously helpful to our understanding of human nature and our understanding of how people will respond in given situations. The situation that you are describing now is, in my view, purely the product of maybe the most corruptive media force I've ever seen in society, and that is social media. And what's happening to boxing has already happened to politics and is happening to any number of other pursuits where legitimate standards and legitimate judgments about what constitutes excellence and what is meaningful and what is essential to society are being destroyed by click numbers. On social media, the only thing that matters is how many people recognize your name and have been lured by whatever it is you're writing or presenting on social media to attach some significance to it. And that's the only vehicle by which we could have arrived at a circumstance where people who have absolutely no background, no credentials, no presentable proof of their value in a sport can be given millions, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars by people whose only attachment to them is that they know their name and follow them via social media. It's a wildly disorienting corruption of what has always been our approach to public life in every area. It used to be that in order to mean something, you had to mean something. Nowadays, you mean something if and only if your numbers reach a certain level.
Do you dislike it?
Sure. I dislike anything that dilutes or destroys value standards. It bothers me that people who have promoted themselves on YouTube and who have not spent 10 or 12 years in the gym learning the legitimate craft of boxing get more attention than people who have. I think that should discomfit anybody with a legitimate standards-based view of the world. But I'm an old horse, and I'm somewhat out of step with what's going on in the world at large right now.
I just can't imagine how a legitimate fighter who trains all his life, is above average by any metric, is someone who merits fame and attention for how he's sculpted his or her skill, how they watch the kind of money that the Pauls are making and don't want to throw up on their boxing trunks?
If I were Gennady Golovkin or Canelo Alvarez, and I know that I'm one of the 5 or 10 best fighters in the world, or in Canelo's case, probably the best fighter in the world at this given moment, and I see people who have never had a committed day of training of the kind I've done for years and years of my life, making as much or more money than me, I think I'd have to be very, very discomfited by it. I haven't spoken to Gennady or Canelo or any of the other top fighters I still know about it, but I can't imagine that it isn't wildly discomforting to them to see what's going on and to see that there is an audience maybe larger than their audience, which has zero understanding of what it means to be really good in the ring.
You come from a time where the heavyweight fight especially, but the big boxing matches, whatever they were, the merit of the boxing is what led to it being an event that people would be dressed up for or whatnot. Now you have in the pay-per-view space, the event and the boxing is just sort of tucked into it because that is something that's preferable to young people. But if it keeps the sport alive, even in a diminished state, can you bring yourself to applaud it?
I don't know that that's keeping the sport alive. I mean, the sport is an extremely difficult, arduous, elusive craft that fighters search for years in the ring to find and then to adapt to their own liking and value profile and ability profile, and then go in and with all of that try to win fights. So you say that because there are big numbers attaching themselves to, and it isn't just the Pauls, there are others, but there are big numbers attaching themselves to these people, and therefore that's keeping boxing alive. I don't get that. If undertrained people without real skills go into the ring and fight against each other, to me, that's not boxing. Boxing is something that takes place between and among people who have put in years and years of work to honor, value, and learn the craft. That's not what's going on in those fights.
Instead of seeing you as an old horse, I'd like to explain to people, it's the reason I was asking you about crying and caring at the beginning. Can you explain to the audience, as a man who is a master with words and can really weave tapestries, what it is that you love about this sport beyond the couch with your mother, beyond the emotional tugs, the specifics of what it is you love about the fight game?
It's the most human of all sports. It is the sport which is most individualized. Yes, there's gear. You're wearing gloves. Yes, there's a coach in the corner, a trainer who tells you what to do. But when fighters go into the ring and face each other, they are engaged in something that is so deeply psychological, so inner, so much the product of nearly all their lives that they've spent trying to master it, that to a certain degree, and I love this about it, I've watched thousands of fights, I've called hundreds of fights, but I could never possibly say that I know as much about what goes on in there as the two fighters do. When you see 12 rounds of boxing between two guys who appear to be trying to kill each other, I always use Gatti and Ward as the primary example of this, because if you take a non-boxing person, a novice, and show him Gatti Ward 1, they're all blown away. They can't believe that people can absorb and deliver that kind of punishment to each other face to face. And when the bell rings at the end of the 12th round, and you see those two fighters fall instinctively into each other's arms, and here I go, you've done it too. But when you see Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward fall into each other's arms at the end of the 12th round, that embrace says a number of things. Number one, it says, I love you. I am now officially in love with you because I have just spent 12 rounds trying to kill you and watching you try to kill me with your fists. And now we know more about each other than our mothers do. We know everything about what are our weaknesses, what are our strengths, what it is we can do skillfully, what it is we can't do skillfully. That knowledge is all there now and shared between Holyfield and Bo, between Lewis and Tyson, between Gennady and Canelo, between Arturo and Mickey. And then beyond that, there's the question of who won. Judges try to figure it out. I try to figure it out. I worked with the guy I thought was the best judge in the sport for years and years. But the fact of the matter is, only two people really know who won. And they may not always say it honestly, because they're still feathering their own nest. They're still building a career. They're still going forward. But I guarantee Mickey and Arturo, Canelo and Gennady, deep in their hearts, at the end of those fights, they know who won. And that elusive, almost mystical knowledge is the reason people watch fights. The people who watch fights for the purpose of seeing a one-punch annihilating knockout, they're not real boxing fans. Real boxing fans want to see competition. They want to see the two guys honor each other with their commitment to that competition, and they want to see the nobility that comes from doing something that you really can't do the same way in any other sport. Face off against a man in an enclosed distance, a couple of feet away from him, and say to him, okay, now I'm going to try to prove, just as I know you're going to try to prove, that I'm more man than you. There's nothing else like that.
From that prism, I could see where you would be offended by the pay-per-view numbers some of these things are doing when it doesn't have that kind of dignity and doesn't have that kind of nobility and doesn't have that kind of love or vulnerability.
I try not to be offended by things I can't control. It's not always an easy process. And I do have emotions, and I can be offended from time to time. And, you know me well enough, Dan, after all these years to probably understand pretty well the kinds of things that do offend me.
Evander Holyfield, watching him fight at 58 years old in that setting is, now you've seen this throughout boxing for a long time. A lot of guys being in the ring a lot longer than they should be, risking their health for money. But did you have any appraisal of Evander Holyfield being knocked out at the age of 58?
He didn't handle his money well when he was making it. He's not the only fighter who's ever done that. He has shown a lot of love and support for other fighters, particularly Riddick Bowe. I deeply, deeply respect that. He was a great fighter in his time. He is, in the old-fashioned sense of the phrase, he's a real man. So given the chance for Evander to suddenly, 1 week notice, have a chance to make a sum of money that he might not have ever been able to access again in his life without saying yes to that, I totally understood why he said yes. And I don't argue with his choice for himself. So, I issue no criticism of Evander. I hope that the money was great and that this time he will keep enough of it to provide greater comfort to himself and his extended family over the years yet to come.
You mentioned some of them. What do you regard as the best fight that you have ever been in attendance for? The best fight that you have ever called?
The best fight I've ever called. Well, that's too difficult. I mean, the last two major fights I called on HBO were Golovkin, Canelo 1 and 2. And I defy you to find better, more sustained, more thrilling action than you could see in those two fights. But, I've called some of the biggest fights in the history of the sport. The very first live prize fight I ever attended was Cassius Clay versus Sonny Liston in Miami Beach, February 25, 1964. That was called, at that time, the biggest upset in the history of boxing, not just in heavyweight boxing, the biggest upset in the history of boxing. Go 26 years forward from there, to February 10, 1990 in Tokyo. And somewhere late in the fight, round 8, round 9, before Douglas applies the finishing punches, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, the very first prize fight I ever attended when I was a 14-year-old boy was Clay winning the title over Liston in a fight that was called the biggest upset in the history of the sport. Now I'm sitting here with a microphone calling for all American viewers the fight that will dislodge it as the single biggest upset in the history of the sport. And when something like that happens to you, it's almost impossible to resist the inner urge to think this was meant to be. This is a written script from the universe. I was supposed to be in this position calling this fight. Now, there's an element of hubris in that I reject. It's just a coincidence. It's just an accident. But still, how many times in your life will something like that happen? And how can you resist the urge to think there was a map? That, you know, there was a path by which I got to this point. Either way, to have been at either one of those fights is a privilege never to be surrendered.
Last time we talked to you, you were about to do an event, and we asked you, like, where you've been, what have you been doing? And you were saying to us basically, well, look, sometimes the phone just stops ringing and you're retired and there's no big announcement. There's no big spectacle. And we expected to see you back, and then the pandemic happened and we didn't see you do that Triller fight. Are we going to see you again here soon?
If Triller can follow through and complete the process of getting Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos into the ring, I expect to be there to call the fight. That's a very legitimate prize fight involving last year's Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year, the guy who shockingly displaced Vasily Lomachenko with a spectacular display of skill and innate talent. I want to see him. And I'm told that Kambosos is a legitimate challenger who might have some weaponry that could bother Teofimo Lopez. I want to see that. Triller should want to see that. Fans should want to see that. That is fully legit. So if that happens in New York on October 4, as I've been told is going to be the case, I'm going to be there. And beyond that, I don't know.
You demand that it be a legitimate prize fight, correct? Like, I understand
That's what I signed up to do.
Showtime.
Triller knew when I signed with them that I was coming to them to help them build legitimacy. Trying to make a fight like Lopez Kambosos was a step toward legitimacy. This was not a carnival show. So yes, I was committed to doing that fight, and I'm still committed to doing it if Triller can do that. And if they do that, and if they continue to go down that road, and if Triller continues to spend the kind of money that they've been spending on talent, and if a real sports fan like Snoop is still a part of the structure as we go forward, then yes, I'm in position to work with them. But not what preceded it.
You're not doing the circus tent stuff. You're not doing the clown card. I know that Showtime, Ariel Helwani and Al Bernstein lent credibility to those proceedings by being the credible journalists who were ringside. Jim Lampley wants him a legitimate fight. I want to call something that I care about where I can admire the skill level. That is worthy of decades of expertise calling boxing. Otherwise, you'd prefer not to be there.
100% correct. And if I cannot call fights on that basis, I don't want to call them. But if I can call fights on that basis, I very much want to call them. I was a little surprised that it took more than 2 years for somebody to pick up the phone and call and make an offer. And I was happy when it happened. And Snoop is an old friend. I'm eager to try to help him and his enterprise succeed. But Holyfield versus an MMA guy was not the way to do that.
I love that Snoop is an old friend. I love that you're old friends with Snoop. This pleases me, and I love that you're the last remaining guy in boxing holding on to a standard, Lampley, demanding that America have standards. I salute you, sir.
Well, I don't know that I'm the last remaining guy. who is trying to uphold a standard. I just happened to be in, coincidentally, in a position within the past couple of weeks where if I wanted to plant a flag for legitimacy, I could do it. But, you noticed, some other people noticed, New York Times noticed, but I'm sure there are millions of people out there who didn't notice that I wasn't there. And for them, maybe it was the event that they wanted to see, and that's fine. Everybody has a different position and a different opinion. I'm just grateful that you understand mine.
I assumed, though, that it wasn't the standard of boxing that you were protecting. I thought, and I don't know anything, but I just thought, well, if they're going to turn it into a clown show and then throw the Trumps on it too, Lampley's not going to lend his name to all of that. But I didn't know it was about protecting the standards that you have for boxing and merit and the art and the nobility of the art.
Well, there's an element of self-protection in that. I can stand here as a sophist and say, yeah, I'm trying to protect boxing and its standards. What I'm really saying is I'm trying to protect my standards by associating with the sport at its most legitimate and presentable level.
Love it, Jim. Thank you so much for making the time for us. Always appreciate it when you grace us with your presence and your eloquence, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Dan.